Hello and welcome to the 10 Million in 10 Years podcast. I'm David and I've got a very special guest with me today. Welcome, Aaron Green.
Welcome, David. Thank you.
We've got a 3-part mini-series, don't we?
It is a 3-part documentary.
So we're going to start with recording life.
So we came up with some ideas for podcasts, didn't we? But the first one being recording life. The second one, just as I think a teaser, because it's good to tease future episodes of these things, is and I think this could be the big one. This is the one people are going to.
Should we save this till last, this one?
Well, I'll save it till last. So the second one is going to be 3 inspirational quotes that I'm going to give, which is going to be 3 pearls of wisdom. But then the next one, which is the ultimate one, is the question, is money the ultimate goal?
Yeah, and that ties into the challenge. It ties into, I guess, a little bit of who you are.
Yep.
A part of it, and
Well, it ties into the theme of this podcast.
Yes.
10 million in 10 years, but because you're 1 year into it now, and that's pretty crazy.
1 year in.
1 year of recording your whole life.
But nobody's made me question it until meeting you.
So I guess we should start by saying, who am I?
That's a good
idea. I know who I am, and you know who I am.
Roughly.
So my name's Aaron. I'll do the intro if you like. I mean, my name's Aaron. I didn't prepare an introduction. And I got to know you through a friend, one of mutual friends.
Yep.
And we just sort of got to chatting, and I heard about your 10 million in 10 years, and I was kind of interested and intrigued, as I'm sure everybody is that's listening. And I thought, wow, that's cool. It's cool that you're recording this, I think. And because I've done some stuff like this in the past where I've recorded parts of my life or even entire parts of my life, and as a way of kind of keeping accountability to myself and other things. And so I think it's a great way to hold yourself to completing the goal. But I do question you on the goal, but that's coming up in another podcast. I think for now, I thought it'd be good to talk about recording life. So I searched a great oracle.
You skipped the bio.
The bio. Sorry, yeah. So
you didn't quite finish the intro.
Okay, so I'm Aaron. I am 51 years old.
Yeah.
I sort of say sometimes to people that I'm retired, and that's just because I don't have a job. Because I did have a job for 20 years. I ran a software company that I founded in 2002. It was called Streamtime, and we were project management software for creative companies. And 2 years ago, I got approached by a large company who wanted to buy me out. And I never really thought I would sell the business, but did. Decided I maybe I should. I mean, I was turning 50, and I thought, do I really want to be doing this for another 10 years? And what would that look like? And so, I kind of jovially made up a silly number to the buyer, and they actually accepted it. Long story short, there's a whole other story in how they accepted it and how that worked. But it sort of left me now with free, I guess, from that business, which I actually loved, which is a strange feeling.
I've got some questions on this too.
I bet you do. But they're not in our topics.
Oh, okay. So you're calling the shots.
I know, we can come to those in due course, because I think there is a whole story around a lot of that. But and I think you were probably intrigued a little bit as to how I got to the end of that, and then also perhaps what life's like after hitting that kind of goal. I never set out to achieve the sort of a money goal, a financial goal, and that's another topic that we're going to talk about. And it just sort of happened that way. It's just how it worked out. And now I'm at the other end of it. It's really interesting to see you coming in and recording this. And so I actually went through and binged all of your 50 or so recordings that you've done in the last 12 months.
That both impresses me and scares me a little bit.
Well, I thought I'm curious. And they were quite easy listening, sort of just, short, sharp, punchy, boom, 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 and honest, which is, I think, honesty in your recordings, I think, is just so important, because that's what people relate to, I think, the most.
I try to be as open and honest and vulnerable, I guess, as possible. I think that's what makes for relatability and part of the storytelling process, I think, for me anyway, is being real, you know?
It's easier to tell the truth than it is to try and fabricate
Absolutely.
some story.
Totally.
Get it all wrong.
Yeah.
If you make it up, you trip over
Yeah, and
yourself.
then you got to remember the lies you've told. It's it's not ideal.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
So you've got the exit, and now you've got a YouTube channel, and we'll get to this. We've got some notes on the recording.
I'm a
segment.
professional YouTuber.
We're going to get you to the 1,000 subscribers soon. Right?
I would like to get to 1,000 subscribers in 1,000 days.
It would be nice.
I'm actually 30 subscribers away from 1,000, and then the money's going to rain down. I'll be an employee of Google.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got the YouTube channel, which is largely car focused.
Yes, cars, a little bit of architecture, but mostly cars now.
Have you always been into cars, or is that a recent thing?
Hasn't everybody been into cars? I don't know. I maybe not.
I don't know. In a way,
I think your car, your choice of car, really does define a person. So the type of car they have, and I think vice versa. You can actually look at a person, look at their personality, and match them. There's an equivalent car out there for you that matches your personality. Whether that's like a Jeep Wrangler, or a Volkswagen Beetle with a surfboard on the top, if you're that kind of person, or a Mercedes something or other. There is a car for everybody.
It's a good point. Yeah. Do you ever come across people that their car absolutely does not match them? It's a disconnect, and you're like, what's going on here?
You do. More commonly, you come across people with incredibly boring cars, and they clearly aren't interested in cars, nor do they care. They're just things that get them from A to B.
They've ended up with this car.
Yeah, but it's actually this. I guess the stimulation that you get by getting into a car that has some kind of character and excitement to it. When you get in the morning, you start it up and you go on your journey wherever you go to work, for example, it does set you up for the day. And it doesn't have to be a really ridiculously expensive car. It just has to have something that conveys some memories, or has some tactile feel to it, or the drive itself and the way it looks just does something for you personally. It's if you live by the beach and you have one of those classic old Volkswagen Beetles, I imagine, I've never had one of those, but I imagine it would feel good to get into it. You feel like you're in the mood, you're ready to go surfing.
Yes.
You're set, you've got the right equipment for the job.
Yeah.
And you've talked about having the right gear and the right equipment in the past. So anyway, we'll digress onto cars, but we were talking about recording life.
We're done with the bio, the intro?
Do you think?
That's pretty good.
Questions?
It's pretty good. Yeah, you got a cool house too, right?
Yes. The house is as seen on TV house.
Yes.
It featured on the TV show Grand Designs last season.
Separate Instagram for that, right?
Separate Instagram for that. Yeah, it's the Copper House in Cass Bay, and I think if you Google Copper House Cass Bay, you'll probably find it, or Cass Bay House on Instagram.
Yeah. Cool.
CASSBAY HOUSE.
And so you've got the house, you've got a family, you've got a wife, 2 kids, right?
Yep. Wife, 2 kids, 21-year-old and a 18-year-old almost.
Yep. And I know where you grew up, North Canterbury.
Grew up in North Canterbury. We went for a wee drive out there the other day, which was quite fun.
Survived that.
Yeah. And grew up on a farming guy. So those were really early days of recording for me started. And I bought some props in for you, which you'll have to describe what you're looking at, I guess, to the punters.
Wow.
So what we're looking at here, for those that can't see, because no one can see, is an AIWA.
Or can they see?
AIWA, or maybe they can see. An AIWA compact cassette recorder.
Wow.
From 1970 something. And my dad gave me this when I was probably about 7 years old, because it was his, obviously. And that red button there, what does that say? That record. Like, it's everything else on the device is just sort of grey and black and white, and then there's one red button. And I think that really kind of intrigued me as a child. Like, what a cool button. And I mean, I'm going to let you press it for a second. You can do it now. Just feel the tactility of it. And in those days to record, do you remember? You wouldn't even, would you? You're too young for these.
No, I remember dubbing.
How do you record? How would you start recording on this machine? What would you do? What do you think you would do? Because clearly it's not just that.
I don't really remember.
So I'll show
Obviously,
you.
it's some combination.
Yeah, you hold down record and then you press, in this case it says forward, and then that would start recording. And I had a microphone and sadly I've lost it. It looked very much like the one we're using today.
Wow.
And I'd plug into here and I'd go around and record my grandma, my brothers,
Really?
all sorts of crazy stuff.
This is incredible. It really is.
And here it is, like here's an example of a tape, and I'm going to show you. Hear that sound? Christmas 1986.
Wow.
Like this was when we were kids, and we'd open our presents, and we'd come into mum and dad's room, and I've got the whole thing.
So this is
recorded.
pre-video recorders.
Definitely pre-video recorders. And so it's battery powered, and for those that can't see it, it's probably about the size of about 10 iPad minis stacked on top of each other.
Yes. Good summary.
Yeah. And it just serves really one purpose, to record and play back cassettes on cassettes. I used to go around and record all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Were you interviewing people or just
Yeah, I would
recording your
interview.
thoughts, or-
Well, I would interview my grandmother, who was just I'd stay there a lot, and I'd interview her a lot, and ask her crazy, stupid questions, and just for fun, just to record. I don't know. I just enjoyed the process.
Isn't that crazy?
It is pretty crazy.
So this is 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the same, more or less.
We're
right?
doing the
Essentially
same thing with different tech.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's pretty incredible, really. I always liked recording stuff in the 80s. In the 90s, I lived in England for 3 years, and the cost of phone calls in the 90s was horrendous between Europe and New Zealand. We're talking $3 a minute to make a call home. So you never did that. So instead, you would actually record a slightly more modern cassette recorder. You would record these tapes and send them home to people. And
middle of England. We stayed there for about a week.
so that's me in 1990.
Wow.
Sending a message home. And I would record on a tape, and then we'd put it in the post, and 3 weeks later it would arrive home. And you'd send one tape, and then it would get copied at home and distributed out
manually.
to everybody. Yeah, so quite crazy, really, when you think
crazy.
about it. We've moved on a long way. Now
Yeah.
everybody can get us on the internet.
I mean, obviously the tech's different, but the gist is the same, right?
Yes, it is.
It's the information and content that's being distributed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
It's to more than one person. That's sort of what we're getting at here.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like I said, recording life. And I want to read what Google says about recording life, because Google's obviously the great oracle. And I looked it up to see whether this is a good or bad
So you
thing.
searched recording live.
I searched something like that. I was searching to sort of I was looking up journaling, vlogging, blogging, etc., etc. And it says, simply writing down your thoughts and feelings to understand them more clearly. And then if you struggle with stress, depression, or anxiety, keep a journal can be a great idea. And it can help you gain control of your emotions and improve your mental health. And I think I've found that true, actually, to be like recording and documenting processes and what you've done. I find it a way to help with that and help de-stress, but also helps with, I think, just kind of looking back and seeing whether, what you've done in your life was a good thing or a bad thing, and critiquing yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to yourself speak, you suddenly become your own worst critic, don't you?
Yeah.
And you've talked about how even you've listened back through episodes and you've just redone them 10, 15 times.
Yeah.
And it's because you get more and more critical each time. But you didn't start that way with your recordings, did you? Didn't keep re-recording, did you, to begin with?
No, I go through phases of it.
Right.
I just come across. Sometimes that just happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Mm.
Just in terms of the journaling process,
Mm.
physically writing down and getting thoughts out of your head seems to have some
It does.
effect.
It does. It's a really healthy way
Yeah.
to do it. And of course it keeps an archive. It gives you something to look back on in time and
Yes.
and then sort of touch back on and see whether you made some good choices or bad choices, and then pivot.
Mm.
And we were actually talking just before over coffee, weren't we, about I heard someone say just the other day, like it's a good idea to write your own eulogy now while you're alive, and see whether you're happy with it. Because if you're not happy with it, you're still alive. There's still time to change your life. There's still time to do stuff that you maybe didn't do that you wish you had done.
Yes.
And you look back on it and thought, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd tried those things.
Yeah, that's an immediate way to get clarity on where you're at.
It is. Yeah, it's like live with no regrets. It puts perspective into it. And I think you were telling me also that you have got this calendar on your wall at home, which has got like the number of days that you're probably expected to live. Is it based on days or weeks?
It's on weeks. Yeah, so it's up to 100 years in weeks.
Yes, in weeks.
Yeah.
And you kind of cross out all the weeks that you've already done.
Exactly.
And you look at it on the wall and you think, wow, I'm a third or a half or whatever through my life.
Coming up on halfway.
Yeah, and it's like, gee, time's ticking. Have I done everything I need to do?
Yeah, not everyone's into it.
No, I said that. I actually said to you, didn't I? I said it's quite a controversial thing. Like it can be quite, it can actually add to depression and anxiety.
It can.
To some people. Like it can really make people quite anxious and worried about their life and think, oh gee, I haven't amounted to anything or whatever. I mean, that's probably not true, but these thoughts are intrusive and they come in, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why I think it's also quite good to sometimes journal, write down and record. And you can go back and kind of give yourself a little bit of a confidence boost and go, I've had challenges, I've recorded those challenges in the past.
Yeah.
And we've overcome them.
What I do is every day I write a new note, on Apple devices.
Yes. Yep.
So I write a note every day, like kind of like a journal, and date it, and then I can look back on that exact day a year ago. Cool. So I did that recently, and I thought, it was one of those moments when I thought, I'm not making much progress. It was around my birthday, right?
Yep.
And then I looked back on this time last year, and I was like, oh wow, there was some things going on that I have moved through, and I really forgot about that.
Yeah.
And we tend to do that sometimes, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, just speaking of like my life, I'm going to show you something for the first time. This is object number 2. And to describe it to the listeners, this is a book. This is a book.
Wow.
It's got my name on the book, and it's got a picture of me on the book at age about 3. And what this is I did this over the COVID lockdown because we didn't know how long that was going to be. We had a lot of free time on our hands, etc. And it's essentially, I thought, I think I might have been 47, 48 at the time. And I thought, I could do a 100-page book, allocate 2 pages to every year of my life, and then just basically go back and get photographs from those years, starting out with my birth certificate at the front, original, and then break the years. So I was born in 1972, so I found photos taken in that year, and I put in little kind of just like bullet points of the highlights, I guess, of that year. So 1972, there's even black and white photographs in here. That was just to be a double-page spread. But then 1973. And also put in little touchstones of what was happening at the time. So in 1973, the first mobile phone call was made. The Concorde halves the flight time from UK to USA. Right. And this sort of helped me put things in my life into perspective, into a time frame as well.
That's a good reference point.
Yeah, and then we're into 74. And, I'm growing up, I'm outside, I'm on the farm. Life was different back then. My grandparents, this was the house that we lived in. And then 75, we're starting to get into colour photographs now. Yeah. I got a brother.
Right.
I obviously got given a boat at the same time. I got given my brother and stuff like this. And so as we go through the years, it's this is me at the bottom of the Clyde Dam.
Yeah.
Before my uncle worked in the Ministry of Works at the time and was involved in building the Clyde Dam. Now it's all Lake Dunstan or whatever. So it's really interesting. And what it did is, like, as we get into now we're in the 80s, my first car, some school photographs from the 80s. Mr. King, he always told me I would never amount to anything. And he
really?
Said, and he actually said, call out to Mr. King. He actually said he told my parents I should leave school and join the army because I'm not going to amount to anything at school.
What do you think that was based on?
I struggled at school. I had dyslexia and teachers didn't understand it and they didn't want to understand it, and I didn't fit into his mold as the perfect student, and so send them off to the army and get them to teach them a lesson.
Different era back then. Different.
You'd probably find it still happens in some places.
Yeah, possibly.
In the 90s, I got a video camera, and all these I had to lift from the video camera because I stopped taking photos and ended up taking videos of everything. So that was kind of really weird.
Is that phone there?
Yep.
Is that
around there? It's over there. So can you see it on the desk over there?
That's right.
Yeah. Isn't it? How weird is that?
I remember. I had the same one, you see.
Right. It's pretty crazy, eh? So
Yeah.
and in the 90s, I was at Canterbury University, and then I met my wife in 95, and we were overseas. And so and it sort of jumps forward. I'm going to show you every single one, but essentially, as we start to get into the later years, photography got a lot better, and it was really interesting. I started to write down some of the stuff that I was doing because I did a lot of traveling through work. We obviously had our earthquake in 2011, and Steve Jobs passed away. I'm going to talk about a quote from him at some future point too. So selfies started to be a thing.
Yeah,
In
nice.
2011.
It's an interesting mix of
Yeah.
life events as well as pop culture, and
absolutely.
selfie started to be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took the team to sit on a Sydney cruise. So it's really interesting, and it really did put my life into instant perspective after it's sort of like doing the eulogy thing, I guess. So, and now I actually have something to hand on to my kids if they're interested in how their dad grew up. And I've since done one for my wife as well, going through her photographs and doing a similar sort of thing and bringing her journey in to the point where she met me, and then where our lives kind of merged. And so I've got a book for her one as well. So it was kind of fun.
Just an abstract question here.
Go on,
So, do you think there's an opportunity for some service to create content on people's lives?
I think that's a dangerous slippery slope as soon as you start uploading your life content into some sort of crazy computer. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Not so
but
much a tech or a scalable option. I mean more just a one-to-one.
Maybe.
type
I did
service.
look at that actually. Someone already asked me about whether that was a good business idea after they saw that I'd done it. And I think there might be some services there that sort of try and do this. And it's for the therapeutic part of it to me was me doing the work, the hard lifting, and actually going through and looking through thousands of photos to find. I think there's like 7 or 6 photos on each page. There was always a hero shot, which was a single page. And trying to find those for each year became increasingly difficult as the years went on because there were more photos to sift through. Back in 70s and 80s, I've got like 30 photos for the year,
Right.
or 20 that I can sift through, and I mean most of them that's all I have.
Yeah.
I had to go back through and sort of check. But it was a real therapeutic process, and I think for me, that's what I'm kind of talking about with recording life. It's the therapeutic side, I think, to it that is the most helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even if nobody looks at that, it was helpful to me.
It's there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's constantly helpful to me to go back and look at it and, I guess, review it and get inspired by it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I like about content and creating something like this, that it's it's an investment.
That's right.
You spend the hours doing it, and now
Yes.
it's there.
Absolutely.
It's
It's
an
really
artifact.
satisfying as well when you come to the end of it.
Yeah.
When you look back through it. So that was what I did in the lockdown.
Well, so you've been documenting in a variety of different formats
Yes.
for years.
Absolutely.
Way before social media came along, which is
way
interesting
before.
to me.
Yeah, way before.
Alright, here's some music picked just for you.
Oh wow, Siri's decided we better stop that or we're going to get hit with a we're going to get hit with a copyright. Where's it coming from? I don't even know where Siri was coming from. Did you hear that?
I heard it. It happened.
I didn't even ask Siri for that. What's playing?
We're so surrounded by Apple technology here.
And everything's listening.
Everything's listening.
Oh wow. Yeah, we don't want a copyright strike on that.
No, we don't want that.
Now, the second big thing that I journaled was through my business, Streamtime. In 2016, we got to a point with the business where it's software for creators, right? It's project management software. And the product is like sold as a SaaS product. But it was built in 2002, and by 2016, it was a complete dinosaur piece of software. It was written on some very old technology and it needed to be redone from scratch. But I also decided I'm going to actually reboot the whole product completely from scratch and rethink exactly what our value proposition is and everything, like completely reboot it. And that was a really bold, brave, crazy, stupid move. But in order to help with my sanity and also to help educate our clients on what we're doing and also our staff, I started vlogging. And so I created a short vlog series called The Journey. and there's probably a dozen or so episodes, and each episode's probably 5 minutes or 10 minutes long, and it would literally record the journey that I took to do this, and why we made the decisions we made, and why we made the really big decisions we made, and then what the outcomes of that were. Really, really helpful, really useful to everybody. In that case, it was an example of doing it not just for me, but to help for others as well. So
Yeah.
that was quite fun.
For a public audience or for a
It was for
set-
public. It was for public audience, but it was specifically targeted to our client, a large client base, so that we could, using social, we could kind of push it out to people in our sphere of our customer base, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So they could really get an understanding of what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, because
Yeah.
it was quite a controversial change that I obviously paid off, because the business sort of it dipped as we make that crazy change. I think I said to you the other day, we spent over $10 million in rebooting it, and then so it's a big investment, big risk, and then now it's growing and growing and doing really well.
What do you think would have happened if you hadn't have done that?
We would have died. We were a dinosaur. We would have become extinct.
You would have slowly died out.
Yep, we would have we were less and less relevant. There were newer products around that were more exciting, and we would have just disappeared and become oil in the ground. I would have driven it in my car.
Have any comparable businesses that were operating as a fixed fee model
Yep.
maintain that to present?
Say that again. So have
Are there any
any?
software companies that are doing that old way of working, or have they all migrated to SaaS?
Most of them. Well, yeah. We were SaaS at the time. We'd sort of had SaaS was not so much the change that we made. It was more a reboot of what our value proposition was in the business.
Gotcha.
Right. So because we were previously time tracking software for creatives, that was kind of our tagline. And now we think about how we make businesses more healthier businesses. So yes, we do that through software, but our why is because we want businesses to be healthier in how they operate and how their staff are, and things like equal pay, and just all these kind of things that you should think about in running a business, not just the fact that, and by the way, we track time, we do invoicing, we do these other things. And we're going to talk about a famous quote that from Simon Sinek on that one, because that's the reasons why.
I like that.
That's a little teaser for the future. And I guess one of the more recent vlogging, or not vlogging, but I guess recording of live things was the recording, putting myself out there and my family on New Zealand television with the Grand Designs TV episode for our house build. And that was something that it's not for everybody to do that, like as in not many people are comfortable going all out. It gets quite personal, and you're seen by a huge audience.
Yes.
But for me, what we were doing is we were doing something quite different, in that we were really putting all of our trust into an architect, and this architect is quite special and he's quite quirky. And Michael O'Sullivan, he really works with you, and he works on the whole process right through, and he's still really good friends with us today. And I wanted that story to come out in the show, in the episode, as opposed to Aaron and Christine built a house, and look, the foundations have all blown out, and the budget's blown out, and they've fired the architect, and they've fired the builder, and it's just nonsense. This is all stupid.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about how beautiful the process can be when you involve a whole lot of A players, A experts, great builders, great architect, and then you give them the freedom to do their job properly, and tell that story.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did. So I worked with the director, and we would brainstorm like you and I did today with coffee, and we'd talk about ideas of where the plot lines were going to go, and also just what was happening on the build. And and then she was like, "This is great. Like, I wish all of the builds were this easy for her." But as a result, I think I'm really happy with how it came out, and I also wanted to sort of show the local community, which we were now being part of, because we're in Cass Bay. It's a small community, and to start out we didn't know anybody. Now we know everybody.
Yeah.
And I wanted to introduce them to the process and show them the thinking behind it. I didn't want it to look like this eccentric, rich snob has come from out of town, just gone and put a big house in our bay. And,
because it could easily have been perceived that way.
Heck yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to involve the members of the community in what we're doing, and I bring them in every time they go past, like, come and have a look at what we're doing, meet the builders, look at the process, look at why we're doing this, understand the why. Because knowing the why, people get behind the why. If I just sort of said I'm building a big expensive house in Cass Bay, it's like, who cares?
Totally.
Get out of town. But if I sort of explain the why and the fact that, want to build something that's going to be timeless, that's going to endure, that's going to be, doesn't need to be pulled down in 50 years' time, like most houses that are built cheaply and then they just get destroyed. So, we talk about eco houses. What about the idea of something that can last for hundreds of years, not just tens of years? And why would you do that? Why would you spend a bit more up front on quality to make it last, rather than just have a sort of a throwaway house? And you've talked about that as well, buying quality versus cheap and cheerful.
Yeah. So what was the process like with the grand design? Did that conversation happen at the planning stage or at the purchasing stage? Or
initially I'd approached them and said, we've got this idea that we want to do, and they were excited, and then their production company got changed and they kind of lost that letter, and then we sort of pressed on to begin. And then they contacted us because they'd seen on our architect's website what we were doing, and they wanted to do something by Michael the architect. And so they said, look, we'd love to do it. And I said, well, so would I. So let's do this. And we did. And
And how does it work from an economic standpoint? Is there any money involved?
No, not at all. No, not at all. It's and I wouldn't have wanted to do it if it was sort of tainted with that sort of brush either. We come back to this honesty and transparency, and that's what we really wanted. So no, absolutely not. In fact, they intentionally hide out all any kind of branding that might be in the background. If there's traders with something on their t-shirt, it gets blurred out, or we're asked to change t-shirts and stuff like that. So,
No, I was just curious.
But follow that, have a look at Cass Bay House on Instagram, and if you haven't seen the episode, it's in my bio on Cass Bay House Instagram, the actual uncut video from TV.
And what is it, like a hour, half hour?
I think it's about 40 minutes or so. It's a 40-minute episode, something like that. So, pretty cool.
Very cool.
So that's building a grand design. And then for me, the last one is my YouTube channel, which I've now sort of started. Now that I've sold the business, what do I do? What must I do? And so I've started playing around with a YouTube channel called 9 and 3. 9 and 3 being the correct position to hold the wheel, a driving steering wheel. So number 9, AND, number 3. And I'm having a bit of fun with that, see where that's going to go. I actually got approached, I don't think you know this, but I actually got approached by someone the other day, and they're interested to have me do car reviews for them, and they do a lot of car reviews for magazines, but they wanted to have a video component, so maybe through my brand. So that might be something that happens coming up, which would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But that's kind of again about documenting, vlogging, recording, and in this case, getting it out there.
Yeah. So those are all quite distinct chapters, I guess, that we've got listed there. So do you think 9 and 3 will be the next phase for a wee while?
Well, it is the current phase. So definitely,
phase,
it's the current phase that I'm in. We'll see where that goes and how that goes and what spins from that. But I don't want to ever stop.
No,
this kind of thing. I mean, I think it's great to record life and document life, and my parents used to be into genealogy and like studying ancestors and all that kind of stuff, and understanding our family history right back to the first 4 ships, and looking at what each person used to do. And so that's another form of it, isn't it? Not so many people are perhaps interested in genealogy these days, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think Ancestry.com is a modern day accessible option.
Yep, that's true.
But at least the last time I looked, because my mum, when she was alive, she was into it. But I remember looking at the fee structure, and it was just
Right.
Very prohibitive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, my parents were doing it. It's you have to go back to the archives and you have to get these things called newspapers, which it just so happens I've got one right here. This one here is from 1972.
Wow.
Aaron's birthday.
Wow. I love how you just got this line.
Well, I find these sorts of things inspirational for all sorts of different reasons. And I was unpacking something the other day and these were sitting in amongst it. It's like the Christchurch Star, the Christchurch Press,
Wow.
same date. It might be a couple of days either side. And there's perhaps another version of paper from the next day after. Because I think my birth notice is somewhere in here as well. But quite funny. It's quite funny reading some of this old stuff as well. Like motorist weary as meter maid's return. I don't think you can say meter maid anymore.
No, the piece. Is there colour on there?
That is a colour spot print.
Splash
That
of
would have
colour.
been expensive to do in the 70s. They have a little bit of colour on the paper. They would have done that as a separate print
Wow.
stamp, which is pretty crazy, eh? So yeah,
Crazy.
Arthur Allen Thomas was convicted of murders back then in 72. That was a famous court case at the
He's a bit
time.
embarrassed, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's resentful. Oh, he's got a life too, that's why.
That's right, absolutely. So I don't know, it's, newspapers, that's another thing that, captures moments in time,
Mhm.
just like you and your journey, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah,
Wow.
that's all I have, man.
First episode. First part of the mini-series.
Yeah, so much for 10 minutes. Crikey.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. They're getting longer. That's all right. Because I'm interested with content creation and documenting the journey for a number of reasons, and
Yep.
I think it was the Mac Duo episode that made me think about it differently.
Yep.
Just the reasons and motivations
Hmm.
because of the opportunity got to go to New York because
Yep.
of the amount of content. So
Yes.
I guess then the content veers off into a business standpoint, which
Yes.
is another interesting thing
Yep.
with endorsements and
Yep.
influencing thing nowadays, right?
Yep. Do you think this is going to turn into a business for you, an opportunity for you, this podcast, other than the fact that it gives you the accountability, and that's obviously important?
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it
Mm.
if
You could monetize it somehow.
with increased audience comes opportunity. And
Yep.
I quite like the way that a lot of other podcasters have done it with quite natural ads. Native
Yes, yes.
is the word for it, but it's when the host reads the ad,
Yeah, that's
and they
right.
often use the product, so it's
That's
Well,
right.
it's
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. I mean, it comes back to that authenticity again, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's really easy. We all can spot fakes, and we could talk about product placement, but there's nothing more powerful than saying that these Rode podcaster mics are actually just beautiful to use.
They
They're
are.
not a sponsor.
Totally.
And this is the thing, and I've got Rode gear as well, and
Yeah.
I see that you've got it, and we were talking about having the right gear for the job. This is beautiful equipment.
Yes.
I don't care if they're a sponsor or not. And
No.
they're not. I would always promote good stuff
Yes.
and talk about it. And we talked about Apple gear as well the other day.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the podcast this morning, earlier, a few minutes ago. And it's true. I mean, it's great gear. It's reliable. So why wouldn't you?
and also it's talking about word of mouth before, right?
That's
talking
right.
about how business gets done and how
Correct.
things actually happen. And it's
Yes.
yes, advertising's got its place, but often,
Mm.
despite all of that, it seems like word of mouth is
Yep.
such a tried and true method.
I agree. Yeah, it is. It always comes back to that and because it's authentic and you can trust that person. And so, yeah, I think that's really really cool.
Cool.
Mm.
All right.
We've got 2 more exciting episodes to do.
Episode
We should
number
wrap
2
this
coming.
up. What's any top level takeaways?
Well, I'm going to borrow that cliche or saying from Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've heard it, but
Yeah.
it's all about document over create.
Yep.
So instead
Cool.
of getting artsy and getting technical and worrying about the details,
Yep.
just do it. Just
Yep.
create.
That's right. Don't get bogged down with.
Document.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And don't get bogged down with whether you have the right gear to do it, because you can be as simple as a piece of paper and a journal, a basic A4 book.
Yeah, that's right.
1B5 or whatever, the 1B4, whatever they were.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as that,
That's
or it
right.
could be as intricate as a full studio setup with
Yes.
cameras and goodness knows what else. I
Yeah.
think we actually talked about that, didn't we? You can sometimes overcook on the technical side, and
Yeah.
your content itself
100%.
can be rubbish. So it's better to start with great content, great ideas,
Yes.
and work with those, and
Yeah.
then the audience will come.
Yeah. I just hear so many people say to me like they'd love to start a podcast, but
Mm.
they don't know where to start or don't know where to begin. And like, look, it started with the iPhone.
Yeah.
Voice notes.
Just
That's
do
all
it.
you need.
Get started. Absolutely. And it's Seth Godin who I've got a quote for soon, but it's another one of his quotes is what is it? Great products ship. Like ship
Yes,
the product. Like actually
absolutely.
deliver something.
I love
it.
it.
Doesn't matter if it's not completely finished yet.
Mhm.
Just ship it, iterate, ship it again, and update, iterate, ship and update. You know, get something out there. It doesn't matter if your first podcasts were technically rough, and you would admit that because it was just notes. Now you've gone and got some gear because you're in the rhythm, and you realise like this is going to make your life easier and remove distractions from the frustrations of technical problems.
Yes.
And you can just focus on the content.
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Great. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back for episode 2 soon.
Sounds good. See ya.